I'm pleased you mentioned the national level, James, because that brings me on to my next point. I think a lot of people who are, let's call them a little bit skeptical of football receiving such a piece of infrastructure, maybe not so much within the football community, although there are some, point to the fact that, oh, well, this is just going to be a home for Brisbane Roar, and they are part of a private league. They have private owners who are not even based in Australia. They don't have good relations with the rest of the game or necessarily government or the powers that be. But James, this is not just about an A-League home, is it? It's about the national interest as well as the state interest too.
Yeah, look, we've thought through this in a great amount of detail, Simon, and of course, a 17,000, 20,000 seater stadium for an A-League team is a perfect size stadium for an A-League team. We know that the energy in a stadium that size is great for the A-League in its present shape and form. But that size stadium is also very useful for other competitions within Australian football, such as the Australia Cup, for example. But it also allows us as the national governing body to have some options when it comes to selecting the different cities across the country that we can award national team content to. The reality is when we decide where we're sending the Matildas and the Socceroos or the Olyroos or the women under 23 teams or our 17s or our 20s, we need choices to be able to make. And in Perth and in Adelaide, in Melbourne and in Sydney, we've got options, because if we want a 50,000 plus seater stadium vis-a-vis a more boutique 15 to 30,000 seater stadium, we have those options in other cities. We don't have those options in Brisbane at the moment. So if we think we're going to get a crowd of, let's say, 20,000, it might be that we don't want to put a crowd that size in a 50 plus thousand seater stadium, which means that we're redirecting content at the moment from a city like Brisbane, which is a shame, because Brisbane is not only one of the largest cities in the country, but it's a city that is obviously going to host the Olympics in 2032. I think the other point, Simon, is also playing surface. When you've only got one stadium that you can take a national team fixture to, the surface and the use of that facility comes into play. And there's a lot of different sports that are using Suncorp Stadium, and sometimes the surface, just because of the sheer volume of sport being played on it, does limit our ability to sometimes go to Brisbane. And then I think one other element is international competition, Simon. At the moment, if we're looking to bring more competitions of international level back to Australia, like the Women's Asian Cup that we're hosting in 2026, sometimes stadiums of tier 2 standards are what you need to organise a competition. The Women's Asian Cup, for instance, we are in Queensland, we're not in Brisbane. We're on the Gold Coast at Robina Stadium, and that's because that size stadium is perfect for that competition. So I think, to answer your question, yes, Brisbane Roar A-League would absolutely be a beneficiary of this submission, but it's far broader than that. We've got other competitions in Australia, we've got national teams, and we've got international competition as well.
And put some numbers around that.
It would essentially be a year-round facility, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So to put some numbers on that, Simon, there is currently 149 pieces of content that we can put into a tier 2 stadium tomorrow, and 20 of those relate to the Brisbane Roar. So at the professional level, semi-professional level, and community level of football, there is a large amount of content that will benefit not only the football community, but the economics of the city of Brisbane, because that doesn't include how other sports might utilise it, and it also doesn't include what other entertainment products might utilise it, concerts that are more suitable to 15 to 20,000 people. So it's an interesting position as to why we should not do something, because who we think may or not be the beneficiary. We prefer to think about and reimagine what is possible, and that's the approach that football is taking. And we're far more sophisticated in our approaches now, and now is a better time than any to put our new sophisticated approach forward to deliver the best outcomes for the game of football.